The large auditorium was buzzing with tension. From the back rows to the front seats, people whispered to each other, exchanging guesses about who would perform next. Some came with notebooks, some with cameras, and many with hearts pounding in anticipation. This was one of the most prestigious music competitions in the country. For many, it was a chance to show their skill, to earn recognition, and maybe even change their lives. The atmosphere carried both excitement and nerves, a mixture that made the air feel thick and almost electric. Competitors had been arriving all morning, each hoping their performance would be the one to impress the judges. The stage itself seemed intimidating. A grand piano sat at the center, polished and gleaming under the bright lights. Its keys seemed to wait patiently for someone worthy, and the audience couldn't help but stare. Posters of previous winners hung along the walls, a silent reminder that this was a place where only the best were celebrated. People whispered stories of past contestants who had tried and failed, of brilliant musicians who had been stopped by one tricky piece that seemed impossible to master. The tension was almost tangible. Even the judges, known for their strict and sometimes harsh critiques, looked tired from the long day of listening to hundreds of hopeful performers. Among the competitors, there was a quiet figure preparing off to the side of the stage. It was unusual, really. Most contestants were practicing loudly, nervously tapping keys, or running scales over and over. Some were dressed in formal clothes that shone under the lights. Some were calm and confident, while others fidgeted nervously. But this particular figure, a child of only 8 years old, stood still for a moment, hands clasped, eyes wide and focused. The child held a sheet of music carefully, almost as if it were a treasured object, and took a deep breath before stepping forward. The whispers began almost immediately. "Is that a child?" someone asked. "How can someone so young compete with adults?" Another shook their head, smiling incredulously, thinking it was a joke. Even some competitors rolled their eyes, not taking the small newcomer seriously. The child's small size made them look fragile compared to the towering presence of older contestants who had trained for years. The stage manager signaled that it was time. The audience grew silent, every eye turning toward the entrance. The child stepped out, careful and deliberate, moving toward the piano as if every step mattered. The bright stage lights made it hard to see, but the small figure didn't seem fazed. The whispers in the crowd became more curious than dismissive. Even the judges leaned slightly forward, intrigued by the unexpected sight. Some muttered to each other, sharing doubts. "Too young," one said quietly. "Not enough experience," another added. There was a shared skepticism that a child could possibly handle the challenge that had stopped so many others. The host's voice echoed through the auditorium, announcing the next performance. The child's eyes followed the spotlight, and then they stepped closer to the piano. The audience, now completely silent, held their breath. Every movement seemed deliberate yet calm. The child adjusted the seat, placed small hands gently over the keys, and took another deep breath. The contrast between the small figure and the giant piano was striking. The child seemed aware of the gravity of the moment, yet there was a quiet confidence that could not be ignored. Some audience members shifted in their seats, unsure whether to laugh at the audacity or lean forward in curiosity. The child didn't look at anyone. There was no distraction in their eyes, only focus and a steady determination. The piece that was about to be played was notorious. It had a reputation for being almost impossible, with rapid notes, sudden shifts in tempo, and intricate patterns that could trip even the most skilled pianists. The judges had watched many contestants struggle with this same composition. Some had stopped midway, hands shaking. Others had tried to hide their mistakes with extra flourishes, hoping no one would notice. It was a piece that demanded perfection, precision, and confidence. The audience knew the challenge and whispered about how unlikely it was that anyone could succeed, especially a child. As the first notes were about to be played, the child closed their eyes for a brief moment. The audience held their breath. It was almost as if time had slowed. The whispers stopped entirely, replaced by a heavy silence. Some parents in the crowd exchanged worried glances, wondering if it was safe to have a child attempt such a difficult performance. Others leaned forward, curiosity overcoming their doubts. The judges, whose expressions had ranged from bored to skeptical, now looked intently, almost as if daring the child to fail. But there was no sign of fear on the child's face, only concentration and a quiet confidence that seemed impossible for someone so young. Finally, the fingers touched the keys. The first note rang out, clear and steady. A small ripple of surprise went through the audience. It was perfect. The child's fingers moved gracefully, almost dancing over the piano, hitting each note with precision. There was no hesitation, no faltering, only smooth, confident movement. The piece, known for tripping up the most experienced pianists, began to flow effortlessly under the child's hands. The audience couldn't believe what they were seeing. Some leaned forward, mouths slightly open, while others whispered to their neighbors in astonishment. Even the judges' eyes widened. One of them murmured under their breath, "Impossible, yet flawless." The disbelief was clear, and yet there was nothing to deny. Every note was perfect. As the piece continued, the child's focus never wavered. The audience watched in awe as hands moved quickly but elegantly, mastering each section with a natural ease. There was a rhythm to the performance that seemed almost magical, a balance between technical skill and emotional expression. Even those who had doubted the child couldn't help but be drawn in. Some closed their eyes, listening intently to the music, while others felt chills run down their spines. The small pianist was not just playing. They were telling a story through every note, capturing the attention of everyone in the room without a single word. Time seemed to blur as the child continued. The complex passages, the tricky transitions, even the rapid-fire sequences that had caused previous contestants to fail, were handled flawlessly. The audience had stopped breathing as if any movement might disturb the magic unfolding on stage. There was admiration, amazement, and an undeniable respect building in the room. The child's dedication, focus, and natural talent were clear to everyone watching. The skepticism that had filled the air just minutes ago was gone, replaced by awe and quiet reverence. When the final note was struck, the silence that followed was almost painful. The audience sat frozen for a moment, taking in what they had just witnessed. Then, slowly, the applause began, starting with a few people and swelling into a thunderous standing ovation. People clapped, cheered, and some even whistled in amazement. The judges, usually so strict and critical, were on their feet, clapping enthusiastically. Their expressions showed not just approval but genuine astonishment. One of them, who had looked doubtful at first, shook their head with a smile and muttered, "We underestimated them." The child, slightly flushed from concentration, bowed humbly, almost as if they didn't realize the impact of what they had just done. Backstage, parents and supporters rushed forward, eyes wide and hearts full of pride. They hugged the child tightly, their excitement barely contained. Yet amidst the celebration, the child remained calm, already thinking about the next challenge, already dreaming about what could come next. The audience, still buzzing, talked about the performance as something extraordinary, something that would be remembered for a long time. Competitors who had watched from the wings whispered among themselves, some in admiration, some in disbelief. How could someone so young do something that so many older, experienced musicians could not? The answer was clear in every note that had been played. Talent, focus, and a natural gift that couldn't be taught, only nurtured. As the lights dimmed and the next performer was called, the memory of the small figure at the piano lingered in the minds of everyone present. People would talk about it for years. Judges would recall it in interviews. Competitors would tell stories of the moment they witnessed an 8-year-old play a piece flawlessly that had defeated so many others. It was a moment that reminded everyone that sometimes the most extraordinary talent appears in the most unexpected places, and that age or experience does not always define ability. The child had shown not just skill, but courage, focus, and a quiet confidence that could inspire anyone who saw it. And so, as the next performer stepped onto the stage, the audience carried with them the memory of that moment. A moment when skepticism turned into amazement, doubt turned into applause, and a small child reminded everyone that greatness could come in the most surprising form. The story of the performance had begun, and it was clear that this young pianist's journey was only just starting. The next day, the auditorium was filled once again with excitement and nervous energy. News of the young prodigy's performance had spread quickly, and the audience now included not just regular spectators but people who had heard about the child's incredible talent and wanted to witness it firsthand. Everyone seemed to be talking about that performance. The flawless execution, the effortless movement of tiny hands over the piano, and the courage it took for an 8-year-old to face a stage filled with doubt and expectation. People were curious, some skeptical, but most were eager to see if it was real or just a one-time stroke of luck. Backstage, competitors were preparing for their turn. Some were tense, whispering strategies to their teachers or coaches. Others were silently reviewing their music sheets. But everyone's attention kept drifting toward the child, who quietly waited near the side of the stage, hands folded and eyes focused. Some adults smiled kindly, sensing both talent and humility. Others, who had once considered the child an unimportant contestant, now looked on with surprise and a little respect. Even seasoned performers couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to face the same challenge with that level of skill and calm. The piece that was chosen for this round was even more difficult than the last. It was known for its unpredictable rhythms, demanding speed and emotional depth. Many adult performers had practiced for months, yet the piece remained daunting. The judges, though amazed by the previous performance, were still unsure what to expect. Some whispered to each other, discussing whether a child could truly handle the pressure of this more advanced challenge. There was tension in their expressions, a mixture of anticipation and disbelief. They had seen incredible musicians, but few had ever faced someone so young with such remarkable poise. As the child approached the piano, there was a brief pause in the auditorium. The audience instinctively quieted, sensing that something extraordinary was about to happen. Every movement of the small figure was careful but purposeful. The child adjusted the seat, made sure the music was placed just right, and rested tiny fingers lightly on the keys. The stage seemed to grow silent, the bright lights creating a spotlight effect that made everything else disappear. For a moment, it felt as if time had slowed, giving everyone present a chance to notice the intensity in the child's eyes, the steady breathing, and the quiet confidence that had carried them this far. The first note was struck, soft but perfect. It was followed immediately by a complex series of chords that would have caused hesitation in most experienced pianists. But the child's fingers moved fluidly, navigating the piano's challenges with an almost instinctive understanding. The audience began to lean forward, eyes wide with fascination. The performance wasn't just technically accurate. It was expressive, full of life, and emotionally compelling. The child's face showed focus, but there was also joy, a pure delight in creating music that made the audience feel connected to every note. The judges exchanged glances, trying to hide their astonishment. One of them muttered quietly, "It's impossible to do that with such precision at this age." Another whispered, "And yet, every note is perfect." They had watched performers stumble over sections that the child now played flawlessly, and their disbelief was growing into admiration. Even the audience, which had initially been skeptical, found itself completely absorbed in the performance. The music flowed like a story being told, with moments of tension and release, delicate passages, and bold statements. Every part of the composition was handled with care, yet performed with confidence and a natural understanding that seemed beyond the child's years. The piece continued, each measure more challenging than the last. The child never hesitated, never faltered. Tiny hands moved with such precision that the complex rhythms, fast passages, and subtle dynamics appeared simple. The audience was silent except for the music, completely captivated. Some held their breath as if even a sigh could disturb the magic unfolding on stage. Teachers and coaches who had seen hundreds of performances leaned forward, some shaking their heads in disbelief. The child's ability to maintain control while expressing emotion in the music was rare, even among adult professionals. Halfway through the piece, there was a moment when the music demanded a sudden change in tempo and tone. This part had tripped up every competitor who had attempted it before, leading to stumbles and mistakes. But the child handled it effortlessly. The fingers glided across the keys, the notes perfectly timed, and the emotional intensity of the piece increased without losing any clarity. The audience gasped collectively, some clapping lightly without thinking, unable to contain their amazement. The judges were leaning closer now, watching every detail. Their earlier doubts had completely vanished. What they were witnessing was not luck. It was a true display of skill, talent, and a deep understanding of music. As the final passages approached, the music became more dramatic and expressive. The child's performance carried not only technical perfection but also the story the composer intended, drawing the audience into a journey of emotion and imagination. Some people's eyes filled with tears as they listened, moved by the intensity and beauty of the sound. Others sat in complete silence, unable to process what they were witnessing. Even those who had expected great talent were stunned by the combination of mastery and youthful energy. The performance felt alive, every note vibrating with precision and feeling, creating an atmosphere that was impossible to ignore. When the last note was played, the audience remained silent for a brief moment, unsure how to react. Then, slowly, applause began, starting with scattered claps that quickly grew into a loud, enthusiastic ovation. People were standing, cheering, and some were whistling in amazement. The judges were on their feet, clapping with visible admiration. Their expressions showed respect, astonishment, and an acknowledgement of the child's extraordinary talent. One judge smiled, shaking their head in disbelief, saying quietly, "There is no denying it now. This child is remarkable." The audience echoed the sentiment, some speaking to their neighbors, repeating words like incredible and unbelievable, as they tried to comprehend what they had just seen. Backstage, the child received hugs and praise from parents and supporters, but amidst the excitement, there was a quiet calm. The small pianist seemed almost unbothered by the attention, already thinking ahead, already focused on improving and preparing for the next challenge. The humility was as remarkable as the talent itself. Observers commented on how rare it was to see someone so young not only possess such ability but also carry themselves with such poise and grace. The child had become a symbol of what could be achieved with dedication, focus, and natural talent, inspiring everyone who had watched. Word of the performance spread quickly. By the afternoon, teachers, parents, and music enthusiasts were sharing stories and videos, all amazed by what had happened. The child became a topic of conversation across the city, not just for technical ability but for the courage and confidence displayed on stage. Even competitors who had initially doubted the child admitted, quietly to themselves, that they had witnessed something truly extraordinary. It wasn't just about playing notes correctly. It was about performing with heart, intelligence, and understanding far beyond the years of the performer. The judges, who had been skeptical at first, held a brief meeting after the performance. They discussed the child's technique, musicality, and stage presence, noting that it was unusual for someone so young to have such complete control over both the instrument and the piece. They talked about inviting the child to special masterclasses, performances, and mentorship programs. Their initial doubts had transformed into a desire to nurture and support this rare talent, ensuring that it could grow into something extraordinary. Meanwhile, the audience members continued to talk among themselves long after leaving the auditorium. Parents spoke of showing their own children what dedication and focus could achieve. Music students felt inspired to practice harder. Teachers used the example to motivate their students. The story of the young pianist's flawless performance began to spread not just in local circles but online, with videos capturing the essence of what had been an unforgettable moment. Comments praised the talent, courage, and humility, and many expressed disbelief that someone so young could play with such mastery. As evening came, the child returned home, greeted by family who were proud but calm. The day had been long, full of excitement and applause, yet the child's mind was already on the next steps. There was no arrogance or overconfidence, only a desire to keep learning, practicing, and growing. The evening was spent reviewing music, quietly planning for future challenges, and enjoying a moment of rest. It was a balance of focus and relaxation, a reminder that true talent requires both effort and care. That night, even as the lights dimmed and the city outside went quiet, the memory of the performance lingered. The world had seen something rare and extraordinary. A small child had faced impossible odds, played a piece that others could not, and done so with grace, precision, and heart. For everyone who had witnessed it, it was a reminder that age is no barrier to greatness, that talent can emerge in unexpected forms, and that courage and dedication are often just as important as skill. The story of the child's performance had begun to take shape, destined to inspire countless people and become a tale remembered for years to come. The day of the final round had arrived, and the atmosphere in the auditorium was electric. Everyone was talking about the 8-year-old Prodigy who had stunned the judges and audience in the previous rounds. The buzz was not just about the performance but about the courage it took to play such challenging pieces with confidence. People whispered to one another, "Can anyone beat that?" Or, "How will the child handle the next round?" There was excitement, curiosity, and even a little nervousness. The auditorium felt alive, as if every seat was charged with anticipation. Competitors prepared backstage, glancing toward the side stage where the child sat quietly. Some tried to focus on their own rehearsals, but it was impossible to ignore the presence of someone who had already achieved what many could only dream of. Teachers and mentors whispered strategies to their students, reminding them to stay calm and trust their skills. Meanwhile, the child's eyes remained calm, scanning the sheet music one last time and gently moving fingers over the keys, as if familiarizing themselves with an old friend. There was no showiness, no attempt to impress anyone. Just quiet focus, steady breathing, and confidence that came from preparation and understanding. The host announced the next performance, and the child walked toward the piano with a sense of purpose. Every step was deliberate but relaxed. The audience leaned forward in anticipation. Some children in the crowd were watching with wide eyes, inspired by someone so young achieving so much. Adults murmured among themselves, trying to comprehend how someone so small could face such immense challenges and succeed. The judges, though no longer skeptical, seemed almost anxious, curious to see whether the previous performances were just a beginning or if the child would surpass every expectation yet again. The piece for this round was legendary. It was one of the most difficult compositions known for piano competitions. Fast sequences, sudden changes in tempo, subtle emotional nuances, and long, complex passages had caused countless experienced musicians to falter. It was a piece that demanded not just technical skill, but emotional depth and stamina. Many contestants had given up trying to master it, and some had even walked off stage defeated. Now the child was about to attempt it. The audience held its collective breath, sensing that something extraordinary was about to unfold. The first note sounded pure and clear. It filled the auditorium like a beam of light. The audience immediately felt the contrast between the complexity of the music and the ease with which the child handled it. Tiny hands moved across the keys with fluidity and precision. Even the most difficult passages that had caused adults to stumble seemed effortless. The music flowed naturally, with every note perfectly timed and every phrase expressive. The child's face showed focus and concentration, but there was also a gentle joy, a quiet excitement in creating something beautiful. This was not just technical skill. This was music played with heart. The audience was captivated. People leaned forward in their seats, completely absorbed in the performance. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. Others watched intently, trying to follow every intricate movement of the child's hands. There was a sense of awe that spread throughout the room. Even competitors who had been nervous moments earlier found themselves silently admiring the child's mastery. The judges, usually the sternest critics, could not hide their amazement. Their eyes widened, heads nodding slightly, and expressions softened. They whispered among themselves, unable to deny what they were witnessing. Pure talent and skill beyond measure. As the piece progressed, the music demanded even more precision. Rapid scales, challenging chords, and sudden shifts in dynamics appeared. Each section required perfect control, Yet the child played with confidence, never hesitating. The audience could feel the tension and release, the highs and lows, and the subtle emotional shifts that made the music come alive. There was a story being told in every note, a journey that transcended the stage and connected directly with the hearts of those listening. Even the most distracted spectators found themselves completely absorbed, unable to take their eyes off the tiny performer who was commanding the piano with such mastery. Halfway through the piece, a particularly difficult section approached. This was the part that had caused even the most seasoned performers to stumble. Rapid runs, complex fingering, and sudden changes in rhythm created a challenge that seemed insurmountable for anyone, let alone a child. The audience held its collective breath. The child's hands moved with a speed and accuracy that seemed impossible, hitting every note perfectly, maintaining rhythm and expression, and executing sudden shifts as if they were second nature. People whispered in disbelief. "How can this be real?" someone murmured. "It's impossible." Yet, there it was, undeniable and mesmerizing. The emotional depth of the piece was just as remarkable as the technical skill. The music conveyed both joy and tension, excitement and calm. It drew the audience into a world of sound that was alive and vibrant. Some people's eyes filled with tears as they felt the intensity of the performance. Others smiled in admiration, quietly amazed by the balance of power and delicacy. It was a performance that not only displayed talent but also communicated something larger than notes on a page. The child's understanding of the music, the way they brought it to life, left everyone in awe. Even the judges, who had seen countless performances in their careers, were clearly moved. One whispered, "I have never seen anything like this before." Another nodded, agreeing silently, eyes never leaving the piano. As the piece neared its final passages, the music became even more dramatic. The tempo increased, and the complexity of the sequences demanded both mental and physical stamina. Yet the child continued to play flawlessly, hands moving like they belonged to someone far older, someone with years of training and experience. There was no sign of fatigue, no faltering, only a seamless combination of precision and expression. The audience could feel the crescendo building, the tension rising, and every person in the room was completely absorbed in the journey. It was a rare and magical moment when art and skill combined to create something unforgettable. When the final note sounded, it hung in the air for a moment, pure and resonant. There was a pause, a moment of stunned silence. Then, slowly, the audience erupted into applause. People stood, cheered, and clapped with unrestrained joy. Some were laughing in disbelief, some were wiping away tears, and others were simply staring in amazement, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. The judges, who had been so strict and critical throughout the day, were now standing, clapping and smiling. One whispered to another, "We have witnessed something extraordinary today." There was no question. The child had performed flawlessly once again, exceeding everyone's expectations. Backstage, the child received hugs and praise from parents, teachers, and supporters. Yet amidst the excitement, there was calm. The child listened politely, smiled, and acknowledged compliments with humility. There was no boastfulness, no sense of pride that was excessive. Instead, there was a quiet awareness that this was only a step on a much longer journey. Supporters remarked on how rare it was to see someone so young not only possess such technical skill but also carry themselves with such maturity and focus. Every movement, every expression, every note played spoke of dedication and understanding that was far beyond the years of the performer. The story of the performance spread quickly through the auditorium and into the city. People spoke of the child's talent, courage, and focus. News outlets and social media accounts shared videos and commentary, highlighting the extraordinary achievement. Teachers used the example to inspire their students. Parents told their children stories of what was possible, and aspiring musicians were motivated to practice harder. Competitors who had previously dismissed the child as inexperienced now looked with respect and admiration. The performance became a symbol of what could be achieved with natural ability combined with dedication and preparation. The judges convened briefly after the performance, discussing not only the child's technical skill but also their musical expression, stage presence, and poise. They spoke of inviting the child to special events, masterclasses, and mentorship programs, recognizing the rare talent and wanting to ensure it could be nurtured. There was unanimous agreement that this was not a fluke. The child's performance was not just about playing notes perfectly. It was about understanding the music, connecting with the audience, and expressing something beyond mere technique. It was a level of artistry rarely seen, and certainly not at this age. As the day came to a close, the child returned home, carrying the applause, admiration, and excitement from the performance but already thinking ahead. There was practice to be done, music to explore, and skills to develop. Parents, while proud, encouraged calm reflection and preparation for what was next. The child's focus on growth and learning was as inspiring as the performance itself. That night, the city buzzed with stories of an 8-year-old who had played impossible pieces flawlessly, captured hearts, and reminded everyone that greatness can appear in the most unexpected forms. Even after the lights dimmed and the streets outside grew quiet, the memory of the performance lingered. People who had attended the competition replayed the music in their minds, thinking about the precision, confidence, and emotional depth of the child's playing. Competitors, teachers, and audience members alike recognized that they had witnessed something extraordinary, a rare combination of talent, courage, and humility. The child had shown that age was no limit to skill, that dedication could overcome doubts, and that a fearless heart could conquer challenges that seemed impossible. The day after the final round was quiet at first, but the excitement of what had happened still lingered in the city. News outlets were filled with articles, interviews, and videos of the 8-year-old Prodigy, who had amazed everyone with flawless performances. People were still talking about the courage, skill, and calm focus displayed on stage. Some described the child as a miracle, others called it inspiration, and all agreed that it was something rare that they might never see again. The story had spread beyond the competition itself, reaching schools, music academies, and homes across the country. Back at the auditorium, the organizers prepared for a special celebration in honor of the Prodigy. It was meant to recognize talent, dedication, and the incredible journey that had been witnessed over the past few days. Decorations were hung, lights were polished, and a smaller crowd gathered than in the previous rounds. But the anticipation was no less intense. People wanted to meet the child, see the personality behind the talent, and hear the story firsthand. Competitors who had previously performed now watched with a new perspective. Some were inspired, some were amazed, and a few quietly admitted they had underestimated the young musician. The child arrived early, carrying only a small bag and a calm demeanor. Parents and teachers accompanied, giving quiet guidance but letting the child take the lead. Unlike some adults who might have been nervous or boastful, the Prodigy walked with quiet confidence, acknowledging greetings politely but never drawing unnecessary attention. Observers noted the balance between humility and focus, a rare trait for someone so young. The child seemed to understand that talent alone was not enough, that discipline, respect, and careful thought were just as important. Before the celebration began, the child was asked to perform once more, a short piece that would demonstrate not only skill but also personal style and emotional expression. The audience leaned forward as the small hands approached the piano. Every note played had clarity, control, and feeling. Even a simple melody was filled with nuance and care, showing that the child's understanding of music went beyond memorizing notes or patterns. The performance was intimate, drawing the audience in and creating a sense of connection between the music and the listener. People could feel the emotion, the thoughtfulness, and the quiet confidence that radiated from every gesture. After the short performance, applause filled the room, not just for technical ability but for the artistry and heart behind it. Some audience members whispered to each other, marveling at the depth of understanding in someone so young. Teachers and mentors nodded with approval, seeing in the child not only a prodigy but also a musician with potential for true greatness. The judges, who had attended the celebration, spoke words of praise, recognizing that this performance, although brief, showcased both maturity and talent that far exceeded expectations. During the celebration, people had the opportunity to approach and speak with the child. Interviews were conducted, and the young musician answered questions with calm, thoughtful responses. When asked how it felt to perform under pressure, the reply was simple: focus, practice, and believing in the music. There was no arrogance, no exaggeration, just a quiet awareness of what was required to succeed. Audience members and journalists alike were impressed by the combination of humility and confidence. It was clear that the Prodigy's achievements were not a result of luck, but of dedication, intelligence, and natural talent nurtured with care. The conversation soon turned to the future. Mentors, teachers, and music enthusiasts discussed opportunities for learning, growth, and performances beyond the competition. Scholarships, masterclasses, and special concerts were suggested, each one designed to support development without overwhelming the young musician. Parents listened attentively, weighing advice, but the child's focus remained steady. There was a strong sense that the journey was just beginning. Despite the fame and attention, the child was thinking ahead, imagining new challenges and ways to improve. It was a rare combination of awareness, maturity, and youthful curiosity. Later in the day, a brief demonstration was arranged where the child would play alongside another musician. This duet was meant to show adaptability, collaboration, and the ability to communicate musically with others. The performance was seamless. The child listened carefully, adjusted to the partner's tempo, and added expressive touches that elevated the music. The audience was impressed not only by technical skill but by the ability to connect, cooperate, and enhance the experience for everyone involved. It was a reminder that true musicianship is not just about playing alone, but about listening, responding, and expressing collectively. As the celebration continued, people shared stories and memories from the competition. Some recounted moments when the child had entered the stage quietly, only to transform the room with each note. Others spoke of the disbelief and amazement that followed the flawless performance. Parents in the audience whispered to each other about the lessons their own children could learn: dedication, courage, and humility. Students practicing at music schools felt motivated to try harder, inspired by the idea that even a small, determined individual could achieve extraordinary things. The child's performance had become a lesson in more than music. It was a story about focus, perseverance, and heart. Throughout the event, the child remained calm and composed, moving through each interaction politely and thoughtfully. There was no fatigue, no sign of ego, only the quiet energy of someone who knew the importance of patience, discipline, and understanding. Teachers remarked that the ability to remain centered under attention and praise was as impressive as the technical skill itself. Observers realized that this combination of talent and character was rare, and that it was the foundation for lasting success. By the afternoon, the formal part of the celebration concluded, but the atmosphere of excitement and inspiration lingered. People lingered to talk, take photos, and share impressions. The child, though tired from several days of performances and events, remained engaged, curious about the world around and eager to continue learning. There was a sense of balance, acknowledging success without being consumed by it, appreciating attention without losing focus on growth. Those who witnessed this quietly understood that such moments were extraordinary, not just for the music, but for the demonstration of wisdom and composure that often takes years to develop. Even outside the auditorium, stories began to spread further. Social media posts, news articles, and personal accounts of the child's journey and performances traveled quickly. Videos of the performances were shared, comments praised the talent, and viewers were inspired by the story of courage, skill, and maturity. Teachers across the country used the example to motivate students. Parents shared stories with their children about believing in their abilities and working hard. Music enthusiasts reflected on the way the child had brought joy, emotion, and perfection to every note played. The impact went far beyond the competition itself. That evening, the child returned home with parents, carrying the excitement, applause, and stories from the day. The evening was quiet, with time for reflection and practice. The child reviewed new pieces, considered lessons learned, and quietly dreamed of future performances. There was no pressure, No expectation of perfection. Just steady growth, curiosity, and passion for music. Parents watched with pride and care, ensuring balance between achievement and rest, between skill and joy. It was clear that the journey was ongoing, and that the child's focus on learning and improvement would guide the path ahead. Late that night, after the lights dimmed, the family reflected on the events of the past days. They talked about courage, focus, and the importance of humility. They discussed how the child's achievements were not just the result of talent, but of preparation, dedication, and the willingness to face challenges with calm determination. The child, already asleep, had left a mark not only on the judges and audience, but on the hearts of everyone who had witnessed the performances. It was a story that would be told again and again, reminding people that greatness can appear in unexpected places, that youth is not a limitation, and that the combination of talent, focus, and heart can overcome almost anything. The next morning brought a sense of calm reflection. The Prodigy continued to practice, explore new music, and dream about challenges to come. Teachers and mentors watched, amazed by the quiet diligence and maturity. Competitors continued to talk about the performances with awe, acknowledging that what they had witnessed was more than skill. It was artistry, courage, and character. The story of the young musician had become part of a larger narrative, a tale of inspiration that reminded people that the most extraordinary talents can emerge anywhere, even from the smallest and youngest of performers. Through the days that followed, invitations for performances, interviews, and special events continued to arrive. Yet, amidst the growing recognition, the child remained focused on learning, understanding, and enjoying the music. The attention and praise were acknowledged politely, but they never distracted from the passion for the art itself. Observers realized that the combination of skill, humility, and determination was rare and powerful. The child's journey had become a lesson, not just in music, but in courage, patience, and the ability to face challenges with grace and confidence. By the end of the week, it was clear that the young musician had changed the perception of what was possible for children, for performers, and for audiences everywhere. People would remember not only the technical skill and flawless execution, but also the quiet focus, joy, and heart behind the music. Stories would be shared in schools, homes, and music halls for years to come, inspiring others to believe that age is no barrier to greatness, that talent can be nurtured with dedication, and that courage and composure are just as important as ability. The day of the final award ceremony arrived with a mixture of excitement and calm anticipation. The auditorium was packed, yet there was a feeling that everyone present already knew the outcome in their hearts. Word had spread far and wide about the young prodigy, whose talent and poise had amazed both judges and audience alike. People came from neighboring cities just to witness the ceremony, hoping to see the child one last time, to feel the energy, and perhaps to witness history. The atmosphere was electric but warm, filled with admiration, hope, and a quiet sense of awe. The competitors were preparing backstage. Some were nervous, glancing at their music sheets for the final time, while others tried to focus but found themselves distracted by thoughts of the child's previous performances. It was impossible to ignore the prodigy, who had not only played perfectly but had done so with a maturity and confidence far beyond the years of anyone in the room. Some whispered among themselves, not with envy, but with wonder, trying to understand how someone so small could command such presence and skill. Teachers reminded their students to stay calm, to focus on their own strengths, and to remember that the competition was about growth as much as recognition. The child waited quietly, hands clasped, eyes calm. Unlike many performers who might have been anxious, fidgeting, or overly conscious of the audience, the prodigy exuded a quiet confidence. There was no sense of arrogance, only focus and a gentle awareness of the moment. Parents and teachers stood nearby, giving encouragement without pressure, understanding that the child had already achieved something extraordinary. The audience, sensing this calm but powerful presence, fell silent, waiting for the ceremony to begin. The lights dimmed slightly, the stage was prepared, and the final moments of the competition were about to unfold. The host stepped forward, announcing the awards. Applause echoed through the auditorium, and the child's name was mentioned repeatedly, sometimes with astonishment, sometimes with admiration. The judges spoke first, praising not only the technical skill and flawless execution of the performances, but also the courage, humility, and emotional expression that had been displayed. They noted that few performers, regardless of age, could handle the pressures of such a competition with such mastery. The words were sincere, thoughtful, and full of respect. The child listened quietly, occasionally smiling, acknowledging the praise with gentle nods and polite gestures. When it came time for the final performance award, the atmosphere became almost electric. Everyone knew that the child had already achieved something rare, something extraordinary, but the ceremony demanded recognition. The audience waited with bated breath as the name was announced. A wave of applause erupted, sweeping through the auditorium. People stood, cheered, and some even clapped with tears in their eyes. The judges smiled, visibly moved by the child's achievements. There was no doubt in anyone's mind. The prodigy had not only met expectations but had surpassed them completely. The applause felt endless, echoing through the hall, a collective acknowledgement of talent, courage, and heart. After the award presentation, the child was invited to perform one final piece, not for competition, but as a celebration of skill, dedication, and achievement. The audience leaned forward, eager to witness this moment. The prodigy approached the piano with the same calm and focused demeanor as before, adjusting the seat, arranging the sheet music, and resting small hands lightly on the keys. The lights created a warm glow, highlighting the delicate movements of the performer. Every eye in the room was fixed on the child, and every ear was ready to be carried away by the music. The first note sounded soft and clear. It was like a gentle invitation drawing everyone in. The performance began slowly, almost tenderly, before gradually building into a flowing, dynamic piece that combined technical skill with emotional expression. Each section was executed with precision and grace, capturing the audience's attention and holding it completely. Even the most difficult passages, known for tripping up experienced performers, were handled effortlessly. The prodigy's focus never wavered, and the joy of creating music was evident in every movement. People could feel the energy, the passion, and the care that went into each note. The performance grew more intense, and the child navigated rapid sequences, intricate chords, and subtle shifts in tempo with ease. It was not just about playing notes correctly. It was about storytelling through music. The audience could feel the narrative unfolding, each phrase carrying emotion, tension, and release. Some closed their eyes, letting themselves be carried along, while others watched in awe, trying to comprehend the skill and maturity on display. The judges, who had already praised the child highly, leaned forward, captivated by the performance. Whispers of amazement floated quietly through the room, but they could hardly compete with the power of the music itself. As the piece reached its climax, the child's fingers flew over the keys with precision, yet every note retained expression and clarity. The audience was silent, holding their collective breath, absorbed completely in the journey created by the music. The complexity of the piece would have overwhelmed many adult performers, but the prodigy handled it effortlessly, combining control, understanding, and a subtle, natural expressiveness that made every measure feel alive. Tears, smiles, and gasps of awe spread through the crowd as the performance reached its peak. People were witnessing something rare, something unforgettable. When the final notes rang out, they lingered in the air, pure and resonant. For a brief moment, the entire room was silent, as if holding on to the last vibrations, reluctant to let go of the experience. Then, slowly, the applause began, growing louder and louder until it became a full standing ovation. People clapped, cheered, whistled, and even laughed with relief and joy. The judges, who had been strict and unflinching throughout the competition, were now on their feet, clapping enthusiastically and smiling with genuine admiration. One judge whispered to another, shaking their head in disbelief, "I don't think I've ever seen anything like this." The child, modest and composed, bowed gently, acknowledging the audience without arrogance or exaggeration. Backstage, parents, teachers, and supporters embraced the child with pride and warmth. There was excitement, but also calm reflection. The child, though tired from multiple performances and events, remained composed, already thinking ahead, already dreaming about the next steps. There was humility in every gesture, a quiet awareness of what had been accomplished and what still lay ahead. Those observing could see that this combination of talent, discipline, and humility would carry the child far in life, far beyond the applause and recognition of this day. As the evening continued, interviews and congratulations took place. Journalists asked questions about inspiration, practice, and future plans. The child answered with honesty and calm, speaking simply about loving music, enjoying challenges, and working hard. There was no boastfulness, no exaggeration, only a sincere love for the art and a thoughtful understanding of what it took to achieve success. Audience members, journalists, and competitors alike left with a sense of having witnessed something extraordinary, not just in skill but in character and focus. Over the next few days, the child's story spread even further. Local newspapers, online platforms, and television stations shared videos and articles highlighting not only the performances but also the personality, focus, and humility displayed. Teachers, parents, and students across the region shared the story, inspired by what was possible when talent, practice, and determination came together. The child became a symbol of perseverance and courage, showing that age does not define capability and that dedication can overcome obstacles that once seemed insurmountable. Even as recognition grew, the child remained focused on music itself. Every day included practice, exploration of new pieces, and learning from teachers and mentors. Awards and praise were acknowledged politely, but they never distracted from the joy and purpose found in playing and creating music. Observers noted that this balance of recognition and focus was as impressive as the performances themselves. The child was growing not only as a musician but as a person, learning lessons about discipline, humility, and responsibility that would carry far beyond the piano. Months later, invitations arrived from around the country for performances, masterclasses, and special events. Each opportunity was considered carefully, ensuring that the child could grow without being overwhelmed. Parents and teachers provided guidance, balancing encouragement with protection, making sure that the focus on joy, learning, and creativity remained central. Every performance, no matter how large or small, became an opportunity to share music, inspire others, and continue the journey of growth and discovery. The story of the child's achievements continued to inspire people everywhere. Children and adults alike spoke of courage, focus, and perseverance. Students practicing at home thought about how dedication could lead to extraordinary results. Teachers told stories of the young prodigy to motivate their students. Parents encouraged their children to pursue passions and embrace challenges. Even long after the competition ended, the memory of the performances lingered, a testament to the power of talent combined with heart, discipline, and humility. As the years passed, the child continued to grow, both as a musician and as a person. Each new challenge was approached with the same focus, dedication, and calm confidence that had captivated the audience at the competition. The lessons learned about courage, persistence, and humility remained with the child, forming the foundation for future success. Yet, no matter how far the journey went, the memory of that moment, the first performances, the awe of the audience, the judges' astonishment, remained a touchstone, a reminder of what is possible when talent meets heart. In the end, the child had not just won competitions or awards. They had changed the way people thought about age, potential, and courage. They had shown that even the most daunting challenges could be faced with preparation, focus, and passion. The story of the 8-year-old prodigy became a symbol of inspiration, proof that extraordinary talent can appear in the most unexpected places, and that the combination of humility, dedication, and joy can leave a lasting mark on everyone who witnesses it. The journey continued, but the memory of that first performance, where the judges had doubted and the audience had held its breath, would remain unforgettable. It was a moment when greatness revealed itself, not just in skill, but in heart, focus, and courage. And for everyone who had seen it, It was a lesson that would stay with them forever. That the impossible can be achieved, the extraordinary can appear in unexpected forms, and the combination of talent, practice, and heart can create something truly unforgettable.